The harder you want to forget, the harder it gets. The tricky white bear problem. Why is it so difficult to get rid of a thought? This is because it's hard for our mind to think without focusing on something. When we try to avoid a thought, our mind begins to wander. It may jump to random thoughts, but more often, it goes back to reviewing the most recent task in our memory. This leads us to think about the thought again. Also, while one part of our mind focuses on avoiding a thought, another part is constantly monitoring whether it is gone or not. This back and forth process further reinforces the thought. So, what can we do? First, stop fighting your thoughts. When you try to push away a thought, you actually give it more power and attention. Remember, it's normal to have intrusive thoughts sometimes, and that these thoughts will come and go. Another good technique is to shift your attention to something else. It is suggested that you keep your mind occupied with engaging activities that require focus, such as reading or exercising. By understanding how our mind works, we can get along with our thoughts better and regain peace of mind.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to English for You. I'm Mike.
I'm Nikki.
And we're back here today with day 2 of our look at the tricky white bear problem. Well, we should really call it the white bear problem. It's tricky because it's a little complicated, a little difficult, and it can be a bit of a problem for people who are dealing with it. The white bear problem is when you have something in your life. It's probably something a little bit stressful. It's causing you to be worried and to think about it. It's bothering you, exactly. It's stopping you from relaxing. And even when you can't really do anything about it, when you're sitting there, you're trying to read a book or play with your phone, play a computer game, watch a TV show, but you can't focus on what you're trying to do for fun, because that problem is in your mind. How do you deal with it? Well, a certain scientist decided to study this, and they figured out that if you try to not think about it, you'll think about it more. If you try to think about it a little bit, well, maybe it'll eventually go away, right?
Yeah, but if you try to think about something else, that would help,
That would be also maybe even better because it gives your mind something else to be busy with. So let's get back into our article today and learn more about our mind and why the white bear problem, why this idea of thinking about one thing is such a thing for human beings and our busy little brains. Let's get into it. It says, why is it so difficult to get rid of a thought? It says this is because it's hard for our mind to think without focusing on something. Anyone who's ever tried to meditate, when you just sit there and clear your mind and relax your mind, you realize if you actually sit in a room and you make it really quiet and really relaxed and peaceful with nothing around you, your mind just starts to go nuts because your mind wants to think on things.
那前一天我们讲到了这个白熊的现象，就是越是不想要去想某件事情，就会越容易想到。那今天呢，我们要继续来说明这个现象背后的原因。
When we try to avoid a thought, our mind begins to wander. It may jump to random thoughts, but more often it goes back to reviewing the most recent task in our memory. Our minds are kind of like bored little children, right? You can't just tell the kids, sit down and be quiet and don't say anything. Well, I want to play and I need a toy and I want a book and I need a comic book and I can't just sit here because I'm a little kid. So it's kind of like that. Your mind will jump to random thoughts. It'll start thinking about anything, but often it'll go back to the most recent thing you've been thinking about, right?
那当我们想要避免特定一个想法的时候，我们的脑袋就会开始乱跑，想一些随机任意的东西，但是呢，通常最后都还是会回到我们最近一次想的东西身上。Random 这个形容词指的是随机或是任意的。If something is random, it happens without pattern or it's unexpected. 那 go back to something 或者是 go back to 加上一个 VNG 指的就是再次开始做某件事情。
This leads us to think about the thought again. Also, while one part of our mind focuses on avoiding a thought, another part is constantly monitoring whether it is gone or not. Yeah, I notice this, not so much about thinking, but about sleeping. If I can't fall asleep and I start to lie there and then eventually, I start to fall asleep a little bit, immediately the other side of my mind will go, you're falling asleep. And then, of course, I will immediately be awake and that sort of slow slide into sleep, that will stop, and now I'm wide awake again. So constantly, this is a word that just means all the time, non-stop, okay? We use this in a way that might not be entirely accurate. You know, like a clock should constantly be ticking or working. It should work all the time. But with human behavior, sometimes we use it to just kind of say a lot or much of the time. You know, if you say that your friend is constantly looking at social media on their phone, well, clearly not when they're in the shower, not when they're sleeping, not at certain times of the day, but it just means a lot, but it can also mean all the time, like non-stop. For example, Derek is a big NBA fan, so he is constantly checking the scores and results. If he's got his phone in his hand, you know he's reading about the NBA. But of course, not all the time. He still has to sleep a few hours a day. We also had the word to monitor, basically to watch something and to check something. It's kind of like being on guard or making sure that what you're looking at, what you're in charge of, doesn't go wrong, doesn't break, doesn't have a problem. If you're running a machine, you also might want to monitor the machine, just make sure it's working properly, and if anything goes wrong, you can jump in and avoid an accident. For example, the doctor isn't sure why Elaine has such a bad stomachache, so he decided to keep her in the hospital for 24 hours to monitor her condition. They'll just kind of keep her there. They won't do anything to her. They'll just, do some tests and make sure that everything is okay.
那所以我们很有可能就会去回想刚刚不想要想的东西。那另外呢，当我们有一部分的脑袋专注于不要去想某件事情的时候，另一部分的脑袋就会一直去想，一直去监控看我们是不是真的没有去想了。Constantly 这个副词指的是经常、总是 all the time or very often. For example, my neighbors are constantly making loud noises. It never stops. I hate them. If you're hearing this, I hate you. Constant 的这个形容词指的是连续发生的。那 monitor 这个动词是监控、监督 to carefully check something to see how it changes. When you're sick and in the hospital, nurses and doctors will monitor your condition. 那另外 monitor 如果当名词的话，指的是萤幕 computer monitor or TV monitor.
All right, so this back and forth process further reinforces the thought. So as you're trying not to think about it, then the other side of your brain is, hey, you're not thinking about it. So you start thinking about it again, and it turns into this sort of evil game of mind tennis, where your mind is kind of hitting this idea back and forth between itself. And as it says, this back and forth process further reinforces the thought. That means the thought is more stuck in your mind, then making it harder to get rid of. This is a very annoying process. A process is kind of a step-by-step way of doing something. So it's a continuous practice or a continuous set of behaviors or actions that take place. For example, finding a new apartment to rent can be a process that takes many weeks or even months. First, you have to find the empty apartments, then you have to go visit them all and check them all out, and it can take a lot of time, but you have to do it to be successful.
那这样来来回回的过程反而会更强化这个不能想的念头。Process 这边是动词，指的是过程，而这边是名词，指的是过程的 series of actions。过程通常会需要一定的时间，所以我们可以说 slow process， 或者是像在学英文的时候 the learning process。那另外 reinforce 这个动词指的是强化、深化 make an idea or something a feeling feel stronger.
All right, so now that we know the problem, let's get to a solution, or at least some ways to help. So, what can we do? Yeah, what can we do? How can we stop this? First, stop fighting your thoughts.
Just give up.
Okay. Don't fight your thoughts. This is like the initial expression group, I guess, the group that's like, okay, I'll just think about the problem. And then eventually my mind might get bored and move on to something else that won't be so stressful. So don't try to fight the thoughts. Think about it. Stop fighting your thoughts. When you try to push away a thought, you actually give it more power and attention. These thoughts are kind of like bullies, right? The more you react to the bully, the more the bully might go, oh, okay, you're gonna react. I'm gonna bully you more. If you just ignore the bully or ignore the mosquito or the bee, it might just fly away and leave you alone, right?
那所以我们到底该怎么办呢？首先呢，我们要停止抗拒。不要想说不要想，因为当我们越是想要把某个念头赶出脑中的时候，我们就越是给这个念头更多的关注和力量。Push somebody or push something away 指的就是把某人或者是某物赶出脑中。
All right. Another big part of it is also accept that this will happen in your life sometimes. Stress is normal. Remember, the article says, it's normal to have intrusive thoughts sometimes, and that these thoughts will come and go. Yeah, stressful times are normal. Stressful thoughts that are kind of bothering you, that's normal. But remember, these thoughts will come and go. None of this is strange. None of this is a disaster in the end of the world. It's quite normal. If something's normal, it's typical, it's usual, it's ordinary. For example, is it normal for people to eat their dessert first? My uncle always used to do this. No, that's not very normal, right? I'm going to have my ice cream and then I'm going to have my hamburger. Usually people do it the other way around.
但要记得有这样侵入性的想法其实是很正常的，课文这样跟我们说。那 normal 这个形容词指的是正常或者是平常的， It can be ordinary, it could be usual。那我们很常会听到说我们返回正常 back to normal。那另外 intrusive 这个形容词指的是侵入性的 come and go 就会是来来去去。
Okay, another good technique is to shift your attention to something else. In other words, distract yourself or, from day one, think of the red car instead of the white bear. This is a good technique. I think a lot of people might guess about this technique or this way of doing something. A technique is a way of doing something when there could be many ways of doing something, right? Sometimes in life we face challenges or tasks or just we're doing stuff and, oh, you do it that way? Oh, I do it this way. I have a different technique, a different way of doing it. For example, Cleo's tennis coach showed her a new technique for serving the ball, and now she can serve the ball a little bit faster than before. So this is a better technique.
那还有另一个好的方法，就是我们可以把注意力转移到其他东西上面。Technique 这个名词指的是方法或是手段 ，a special way of doing something or a method. For example, he's really good at football. He has some really cool techniques. 他有很多奇怪或者是有趣的技术或者是方法。Technical 是它的形容词，指的是技术的。那另外还看到 shift 这个动词是转变或者是改变。You can be change or move something from one place to another.
All right, so you can distract yourself, think about other things. And of course, that can just be another thought or another idea in your mind. But there are other ways to do this too. It is suggested that you keep your mind occupied with engaging activities that require focus, such as reading or exercising. So don't just try to think of other things, do other things and sort of get your brain focused on this completely different activity. You can read a book, you can exercise, play a computer game, watch a movie, whatever you can possibly think of to get your mind off your problem. This is a very good idea, and engaging activities would probably be some of the best because they will keep your mind busiest of all.
那另外看到今天的 language and focus 用的是助词加上 suggest, demand, recommend, command 另外加上 that 另一个助词 should do something 那这个句型呢是用来表示建议要求命令祈求或者是坚持后面要接一个 that 子句再加上 should 和原形动词但是这边的 should 是可以被省略的那课文中我们用到了虚主词和被动的语气来建议若是我们去做其他需要高专注力的事情就不会去想原本要做的事情了 So for example, if you want to lose weight, I suggest that you start exercising 如果你想要减肥如果减重的话那我建议你赶快开始运动
All right, so yes, this word engaging, if something is engaging, it's interesting or enjoyable in a way that sort of attracts and holds on to your attention. So not only is it enjoyable, but it's not boring. It's the kind of thing you might have to focus on a little bit, concentrate on a little bit. I mean, if you're playing a computer game or watching a movie you've watched 50 times before, a game that you've finished, 10 times already, it might not be as engaging as a movie you've never watched or a game you've never played because that will all be new and it will kind of take up more of your attention. You'll have to focus on it a bit more rather than something that you kind of already know and have experienced that won't be so interesting and engaging. For example, Ashley had an engaging conversation with an elderly lady on the plane. When something's engaging, whether it's a conversation, a story, a movie, it means it's interesting and it's not boring when it could be.
那 occupy 这个动词指的是忙于或者是一直在想 be occupied with something 就是 you're busy doing that thing Engaging 这个形容词指的是使人全神贯注或者是吸引人的 It's charming and it attracts your interest 那我们常常会说到别人有一个 engaging smile 就是一个很吸引人的微笑
By understanding how our mind works, we can get along with our thoughts better and regain peace of mind. Absolutely. Our minds can be mysterious things. Sometimes it can feel like they're working against us. But if we know how they work, we can kind of train our minds a little bit. We can guide them so that we are more relaxed even when otherwise we might be stressing out.
那所以最后借由了解我们的脑袋是如何运作的，我们就可以更能够去和我们的想法共处，并且获得内心的平静。Peace of mind 指的就是内心的平静。那喜欢今天的节目吗？快按赞追踪我们的 YouTube 频道和 Facebook， 不要忘记开启小铃铛，掌握第一手英文学习内容。
Okay, our For You Chat question is, can you think of any conditions where the white bear problem might be helpful? Explain your answer. Usually it's a problem, but could it be good sometimes, having this problem of not being able to stop thinking?
I mean, if there's something that you constantly forget about.
Oh, that could be good. So you're always reminded. I was thinking sometimes there's problems in our life and there's different ways of solving it. Mm-hmm. Maybe if you're always thinking of it, you might come up with, I could do this. I could do that.
But that would depend on
It would depend on the problem.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So it definitely would be very specific to the case and the situation. Mm-hmm. But maybe if the problem is a little bit more complicated and has a few more steps to it, the white bear problem can help you find the best way of solving it. But again, you probably want to stop thinking about it at some time.
Yeah, but a little bit of stress is good for our lives.
It can be good. It can definitely keep you on your toes and keep you sharp. All right, guys, take care of yourselves and your minds, and we'll see you back here sometime soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Vocabulary Review. Constantly. Matt is constantly working. He won't even take any breaks after he gets started. Monitor. I need to monitor the cookies in the oven to make sure they don't burn. Process. Mistakes are a natural part of the learning process. They help you understand what works and what doesn't. Normal. It's normal to feel nervous before you speak in public, but practicing can help you feel more confident. Technique. In our science class, we learned a technique for measuring the temperature of different liquids. Engaging. Rosalina didn't find the movie very engaging and felt quite bored by the end.
智慧小补帖
Random. Reinforce. Intrusive. Shift. Occupy.